how do you stay focused on your intention to success? That's exactly what we're discussing today on the Manifesting Guide. But just before we do that, if you'd like to tame your dragons of distraction so you can get the profitable and meaningful things done, please check out the Power to Focus online training. Link will be in the show notes. This is Ariana Rollins. You're listening to Podcast 667, Finding Your Flow, Strategies for Enhanced Concentration. Let's dive right in. Have you ever seen the movie Independence Day? It's an old one. If you did, do you remember how focused everyone was on stopping the alien invasion? Nothing distracted them. They were working together. Yes, as humans, we can accomplish amazing things in times of extreme danger or urgency, like a mother pulling a car off her child, because everything in us is galvanized and pulling in one direction. When we aren't under such extreme stress, there are parts of us, habits, thoughts, ways of feeling, emotions that pull in disparate and separate directions. And that's really why people get laser focused about their priorities when their life is nearing their end. The meaningless and distracting stuff just falls away, and it's like there's crystal clarity. Now, we don't want to create stress and urgency just to get something done, because that wears out our adrenal glands and creates a lot of health issues. But we do need a way to create importance and urgency at the level of the unconscious mind. This is especially helpful if you need to complete a presentation or a project, or you find yourself distracted and doing everything else but what you need to do or want to do. Now, if you have something urgent to complete and are doing everything but the project, I'd like to ask you, what do you think's going on? Is there too much chaos in life? Are you responding and putting out fires, not being proactive? Do you not feel stable and balanced, like you have the space and the energy and the freedom to do something, or you're expecting the other shoe to drop? Are you bombarded with family, friends, or life demands? There may be one, two, or all of them going on right now. Sometimes our pattern of distraction can be situation specific. Someone can be capable of laser focus and then immediately in another situation get dispersed, get distracted. So what determines our ability to focus through to completion? The answer is invisible and hidden. First, a little background. There was a multidisciplinary engineer studying at MIT. In his research, he discovered that the human element in engineering was the single point of failure. So he studied how the human brain works to get things done and uncovered how lack of coherence is make or break to someone's follow-through. Dr. Joe Dispenza also focuses on brain coherence. He achieves that through meditation. What we do in our work is we achieve that coherence in a different way and in many ways much faster. So let's talk about what happens when our brain lacks coherence. There's something called blockers. Those are habits, ways of thinking, ways of feeling that undermine our progress, undermine our success. And they're just, blockers used to be effective in the past. And so we make them habits, really. And there's an automatic knee-jerk reaction. So that blocker then takes charge when we're under stress. And my goodness, are we under stress on the planet, right? So this lack of brain coherence can be called blockers. Well, this man researched what triggers blockers and how blockers act and why they act in that way and their reasoning. By the way, blockers get established when we are forced to cope with situations that are beyond our capacity. It can happen when we're young, at school. It can happen throughout our lifetime. And what is most important to remember about them is that they are beneath our conscious awareness. And until we can So you may say you want a certain thing, but there is a prime directive of do no harm. So there are parts of you that are trying to protect you from disappointment, failure, and they conflict. And so they will do whatever it takes is necessary to preserve you and protect you. And the self-preservation thing's huge, especially if your security foundation gets triggered. If you've had a loss, maybe a loved one, a relationship, a job, or just something that you'd put a lot of time and energy into didn't work out. That can shake your foundation. And then we stop and we scramble back to create stability. So how do you understand what need is getting met? Okay, so let's do this. And I'd like you to remember back to the last time you were distracted. Maybe you had to complete a task at home and you wanted to watch a movie instead, or you wanted to relax. It was a holiday recently, and so you just needed to decompress. So you used your time off differently. By the time you get back to work, you're looking back and saying, wow, gosh, I had 4 days off in a row. Look at what I could have done with that time. Okay. So now I'd like you to think about what you did do with that time. Did you go out with a friend or a loved one? Did you rest? Did you have quality time with your family, a child? Did you recharge? Did you do something that always lights you up? Maybe it's reading a spiritual book or walking in nature. So at the end of your time off, I'd like you to review, how did you feel? Besides that noise of, oh, I should have done that. Separate yourself from that right now. How did you feel? So you may say you want a certain thing, but there is a prime directive of do no harm. So there are parts of you that are trying to protect you from disappointment, failure, and they conflict. And so they will do whatever it takes is necessary to preserve you and protect you. And the self-preservation thing's huge, especially if your security foundation gets triggered. If you've had a loss, maybe a loved one, a relationship, a job, or just something that you'd put a lot of time and energy into didn't work out. That can shake your foundation. And then we stop and we scramble back to create stability. So how do you understand what need is getting met? Okay, so let's do this. And I'd like you to remember back to the last time you were distracted. Maybe you had to complete a task at home and you wanted to watch a movie instead, or you wanted to relax. It was a holiday recently, and so you just needed to decompress. So you used your time off differently. By the time you get back to work, you're looking back and saying, wow, gosh, I had 4 days off in a row. Look at what I could have done with that time. Okay. So now I'd like you to think about what you did do with that time. Did you go out with a friend or a loved one? Did you rest? Did you have quality time with your family, a child? Did you recharge? Did you do something that always lights you up? Maybe it's reading a spiritual book or walking in nature. So at the end of your time off, I'd like you to review, how did you feel? Besides that noise of, oh, I should have done that. Separate yourself from that right now. How did you feel? Did you feel more uplifted, more inspired? Well, then that's a good indication that the timing wasn't right for whatever you wanted to work on. So getting distracted and not following through on it might have been the absolute best thing for you. You might have needed the rest. And a lot of times that's what we think of as procrastination, but really it's not always procrastination. It's that you were near burnout, you needed to recover. So finding out the need that's being met by that distraction was, reset, rebalance, recover, recharge, and rest. But sometimes, obviously, there's not a positive outcome. We do something else. We binge watch movies on Netflix, and then it's 7 or 8 hours later, and you realized you didn't even take a shower. I don't know if you're that bad, but sometimes I imagine that we can easily get sucked into that because it's so enticing. We're learning, watching stories, right? So these parts of us have defeating purposes, other agendas. Part of your unconscious mind, as they're working below the radar, often they're immature and they act irrationally, and they can do the exact opposite of what we want, our conscious command. So what you're seeing is that part of your conscious mind thinks it knows better, right? And you do. You're supposed to have conscious control, right, of your body and have it following your command. But there are parts that are resistant, like an unruly kid being called to the principal's office, and the principal asked the child, "Johnny, what were you thinking? What were you doing when you yelled at Mary and threw the pencil across the room?" Well, it's really interesting because we can look at the motives behind the character Johnny, and we can also re-educate Johnny to not do that and to get the results that he really wants. Perhaps, I don't know, he really liked Mary and he didn't know how to connect with her, right? But these patterns and behaviors, I know you know what I'm talking about, that trigger our less than peak performance, that we need a way to retrain them so that we can get our needs met in ways that are productive, enhancing, and not damaging to our goals. Now, these parts are trying to help us with what we say we want. Let's look at another example. But obviously, they're not under our conscious command, and we haven't been able to retrain them yet. So what if you have an aged parent who's not thinking clearly, and maybe that they're spending a lot of money frivolously, and they ask you to take them to the shopping mall? You might respond, "Oh, I've got to work right now. Let's defer the shopping trip." Just like in this example, we have parts of our unconscious that are well-intentioned parts trying to help us make good choices and be more successful, but they have their own agenda. And often it is immediate pleasure, immediate stress relief, and immediate satisfaction. And we all know from early years that sometimes we have to do the hard stuff before we can enjoy the success. So let's talk a little bit more about some possible ways distraction can serve us. It can keep us focused on things other than the problem, which if we are successful at our distraction, it can produce a result that's positive. And sometimes that positive thing can be hard to let go of. So say, for example, if as a child someone said, I want to be a priest, that's everything I want to do. It's so important. But in the meantime, as a young adult, they need to earn money to go to seminary. Well, with that clear focus and target in their mind, they develop an online internet business, and their internet business is very successful. Even though the passion for the money, that drive for the money was to become a priest, they struggle. They've got a distraction, a blocker, because they can't put down the successful internet business and get back to their dream. So in this case, would you say the successful online business really became a distraction? You might not think so from the outside, but in this case, it distracted this person from what their life pursuit was, to be a priest or a minister. So sometimes success at something can take you off what you truly want. I don't know if you can relate. And I remember a client who came to me to create a business because he could not stand being a pharmacist. He didn't believe in the conventional medical model, believed in natural things. Now, as you can imagine, he made excellent money. And to add to that, he felt guilty about even wanting to quit because his mother paid his way through medical school. So that created contradiction. And so for him to even think about finding a meaningful either job or online business created all of this inner conflict. So he stayed well past when he wanted to. Well, eventually, he found a way to move out of being a pharmacist and create his own business. And he ended up getting married, and he lives a fulfilling life. So another way distraction can serve us is it keeps us hiding. Like we retreat into our cave and we become really comfortable in our space. And we're not doing the thing that could really make a significant difference in our life and maybe the lives of others. We're not living a more fully expressed life. We're holding back. We could say we're living in comfort zone. Another way distraction can serve us, what it thinks it's doing for us, it keeps us from experiencing failure. Because if we dabble at a project or a goal and never know the joy of success or the learning that will come from the lack of success, it's always pending. It's like, wow, when I do that, that's going to be really successful. But I'm not feeling the timing's right now, so I'm just going to put it to one side. And those things, as we get older, they kind of beacon to us, but it's very soft. The sound of the subtle message of, remember when you wanted to do that? Remember that project? And I can tell you from personal experience, when I listen to that little voice and I pay attention, there's an energy that comes from working on what's most important to us. There's an upliftment and positivity and a buoyancy and a focus. And we become immune to distractions when we're working on the right things and we let go of the wrong things. But until you know what need is being met by the dragon of distraction or the blocker at the core level, it will still operate at the unconscious level and often sabotage you. So how do you get to the blocker's reasons for the patterns and distracting habits? I'd love to share with you how to have a conversation with that blocker part. Since once you understand it and what it's trying to do for you, you can retrain it to help you be successful instead of wasting time and resources. This month, I'm hosting a free training called Tame Your Dragons of Distraction, where I will guide you through a unique inner conversation to reveal that part's job and how it's trying to help you. This is just one of the things we're going to do in the training. And then we're also going to activate your passion project. Now, people have told me they get so much value and insight in these free trainings, how it helps them make better decisions and follow through on them. I'd love to have you join us. You can find the notes, the details in the show notes and join us. And as we start to wrap up, I'd like you to ask yourself, if you had unlimited time, what would you focus on? If you had unlimited time, what would you focus on? All right. I really enjoyed this podcast. I hope you did too. And if you did enjoy it, please leave a review where you listen to the podcast. And if you'd like to tame your dragons of distraction, please join us for the free training. Link in the show notes. It's completely free. Bye for now.